This video should be used with your Topic 4 and Topic 5 worksheet. So let's go ahead and practice some topics, but before we begin, make sure you have all the necessary items in order to do your best. Okay, please try 1, 2, and 3. Number 1, you can use a box method, number line, or if you just know your integer facts. We have -8, and then we have positive 52, so we'll end up on the positive side, and they are different, so we will subtract, and you should get positive 44. Number 2, they're both negative, so we're going left twice. Therefore, we are adding these two numbers, and if you add these correctly, you should get 122. And we end up on the negative side, so it is a negative 122. On this one, the first thing you need to do is the opposite of a negative, bam, bam. So this is a positive 150, it's a plus plus. Therefore, if we're doing number line, we go negative 71 to the left, and then positive 150 to the right. They are different, we've changed directions, so we are subtracting. You will have to borrow on this one. So you will get positive 79, because there's more positives than negatives. Please try 4 through 9 next. You should not be using a calculator. Okay, number 4, we have a negative times a negative, so using the triangle, we have a positive 11. 6 times 7 is 42. A negative times a positive, we're left with a negative. That's 7 groups of -6, negative 42. 8 times 8 is 64. The opposite of a negative, negative times a negative is a positive. 12 times 4 is 48. Negative times a positive is a negative. 4 groups of -12. Here, there's lots of different ways you could do this one. If you do -2 times -4, a negative times a negative is a positive 8, and then positive 8 times positive 10 is 80. And then on number 9, we have a negative times a negative 3, which is a positive 9, and then a positive 9 times a negative 5 will give you a negative 45. Okay, please try 10 through 14. Negative, or 36 divided by 9 is 4, and then a negative divided by a positive is a negative 4. 21 divided by 3 is 7. A negative divided by a negative is a positive 7. Now this one, you gotta think of the balloons or what it means. If you have 13 and you're giving 13 to no groups, or splitting 13 into no groups, or 13 people are standing on top of a balloon, pop! Therefore it's impossible. It is called undefined in math. It is undefinable, it's an impossible thing. Versus this one, you have $0 and you're giving it or splitting it between 8 people. If you give $0 to 8 groups, each group is going to have 0. Or the balloon above 8 people stays alive. It is possible, and it is 0. We have 48 divided by 6, which is 8, but a negative divided by a negative, and it stays a positive 8. Please try 15 and 16. Okay, for number 15, we need a common denominator because this is addition. So 9 and 5, common denominator would be 45 because 9 times 5 is 45. So on this side, we've multiplied 9 times 5 to get 45. So 2 times 5 is -10 because that's a negative. And then on this side, we've taken 5 and multiplied by 9 to get 45. 3 times 9 is 27. This is also a negative. So we've got -10 plus -27, however you want to think about it. In this case, these are both negatives, so therefore we're going to add them. 10 plus 27 is 37 over, denominator stays the same when you're adding fractions, and because they're all negatives, it is a negative 37 over 45. Number 16, first thing you have to do is figure out add or subtract. We have a positive, we have a negative, so we're going to subtract. When we're subtracting, we have to put the bigger number on top. So 2 7/8 minus 1 7/10. So on this one, we can do the simpler method. Instead of changing these to improper, I like to just do 2 minus 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. So now we're doing 7/8 minus 7/10. You could change these to 40ths, or you could change these to 80ths. I'm going to do both because I'm not sure which one you did, so you can see the work in case you made a mistake. So on this one, we're multiplying by 5 to make the 8 of 40, so this will be 35. And this we're multiplying by 4 to make the 10 of 40, so this will be 28. And remember, we're subtracting, so 35 minus 28, you have to borrow, and you'll get 7. So this is 7/40. Over here, if you did 80, you did 80 as the denominator, you do 8 times 10 to get 80, so 7 times 10 is 70. And here, 10 times 8 is 80, so 7 times 8 is 56. And then you have to subtract them and borrow on this one also, and you'll get 14. So this one becomes 14 over 80, which you then have to simplify by 2. And that's how you get 7/40. Now the last thing is, this is a -2 versus a +1, so there's more negatives. So the answer is -1 7/40. Please try 17 and 18. So on 17, if we're thinking box method, once again, both these numbers are negative, so we'll be adding them. So we have 89.54, and then we have to line up our decimal. So the 2 goes under the 9, the 7 goes under the 5, and I'm gonna put a 0 here to hold the place value. And we are adding because they're both negative. 4 plus 0, 5 plus 7 is 12, carry the 1. I'm also gonna bring down the decimal. 10 plus 2 is 12, carry the 1. And we should get 92.24. But don't forget, don't drop that negative. 92.24 as a negative because they're all negative. On this one, this is $325. So remember, the decimal is here on a whole number. And also, this is a bam, opposite of a negative, plus, plus. So we have a negative, we have a positive. This is going to be subtraction. Therefore, the bigger number has to go on top, so 325.00, if you want to think of it as money. And then the decimal, the 14 goes on this side, the 6 goes over here. I'm going to add a 0 to make it money, and we are subtracting, so we get 0. 6 can't, 0 can't take away from 0, so we've got to borrow. This becomes 10 minus 6, which is 4. Bring down the decimal, 4 minus 4, which is 0. 2 minus 1, which is 1. And the 3. And once again, we have more negatives, so we're going to have a negative answer. So lots of negative answers on the front of this page. Okay, we're on the back. Please try 19 through 21. So this is multiplication. So multiplication is simpler than addition of fractions because you get to just multiply across. And then you have to worry about the sign at the end. So we have 5 times 1, which is 5, 6 times 5, which is 30, and you do have to simplify. Okay, so simplify each of the following. So in this case, it has a 5 and it ends in a 0. We can divide both of these by 5, so we get 1/6. And then we have to decide, is it a positive or a negative? 2 negatives cancel out. Opposite of a negative is a positive. So you don't have to write the plus sign. I'm just emphasizing that it is a positive. On this one, we multiply across. Again, 4 times 7 is 28. 11 times 8 is 88. And once again, we have to divide. The largest number you can divide by is 4. So you'll get 7 over 22. And then once again, we have to think about the sign. Negative and a positive. Negative times a positive is a negative. I'm going to rewrite it so I can really fit the negative in front instead of just squeezing it, because sometimes people go like that and then it's hard to see the negative. So now it is very obvious. Negative. Okay, and then there's no shortcuts on multiplying mixed numbers by fractions, okay? Like on the last page, you can't do just 2 times 0. You can't do that. So you have to change this one into improper. So 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8/3, times 4/9. And you know what I'm also going to do? I see there's a negative and a positive, so right away, my final answer I know is going to be a negative. So I'm going to go ahead and write that negative down here so I don't forget the negative in my answer when I'm done. So we've got 8 times 4, which is 32. 3 times 9 is 27. And we can simplify this. Oh, no, we can't. My bad. Nothing in common. But we do need to change it into a mixed number. So 27 goes into 32. Remember, this means divide. 32 divided by 27. 27 goes in one whole time. We subtract, and you'll get 5 left over. So we're going to have 1 whole. I didn't really leave a lot of room for the 1. And 5 27ths. And because I already wrote that negative, I'm not at risk of forgetting it in my final answer. Please try 22 and 23. Number 22, we're going to multiply. You do not have to worry about lining up your decimals with multiplication. You could also do this problem as if they're whole numbers. A lot of people like to do that. So either way you're going to do 5 times 8, which is 40. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 4 is 19. Carry the 1. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. So over here you would do the same thing. If you do it this method, then you have to just go back to the original and go 1, 2, 3 numbers behind the decimal. 1, 2, 3. Here you could write it here. 2 plus 1, you got to move it 3 times. So that will be 1.19. You could put the 0, you don't have to. And you have to check, a negative times a negative is a positive. So this one will stay positive. And you could also have, like I said, this. This is simplest though, okay? But this is still correct. Then on this one, we have 30.2 times 1.3. Or you could do it as 302 times 13. It's the same thing. You just have to worry about moving your decimal in the end. So 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 3 is 9. Now you got to hold the place value because this 1 is really a 10. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 0. And 1 times 3. Now we got to add these together. 6, 2, 9, 3. And then remember we have to count. So 1 place behind the decimal in each of those. So a total of 2 places. So it goes here. And then we have a negative times a positive in this problem. So negative times a positive is a negative. I'm going to rewrite the answer up here. Negative 39.26 is our answer. Please try 24, 25, and 26. So remember, this is division, so we can write this as 5/6 divided by 8/7. And now it's a complex fraction. I'm going to take care of my negatives right away. So negative divided by negative, the answer is going to be a positive. I'm just going to put a plus here to remind myself I've already thought about it. And then we have to do our complex fraction. Multiply by the reciprocal to get a 1 down here. That gets rid of the denominator. Do the same thing to the numerator. So multiplying by 7/8. Then we just multiply across. 35, 48. Those have nothing in common because these two numbers don't share any numbers here, so you can't divide to simplify. So the final answer is 35 over 48, and I already took care of the fact that it's a positive. You don't have to have the plus sign, but that way I know I've already taken care of it. For example here, negative divided by positive, I know my answer is going to have a negative in it, so I'm going to write that negative right away. Then I'm going to set this up as a complex fraction. Division, this means divide. And then you're going to do multiplication by the reciprocal to get a 1 and get rid of the denominator. Times 6 over 5. Multiply across, 66 over 60. Now, these are both even, so I know right away I can divide. The largest is 6, so I'm going to divide by 6 and get 11 over 10. This is improper, so I need to divide. 10 goes into 11 once, with 1 left over. And because I put the negative here, it reminds me we're going to have a negative 1 and 1/10 as our final answer. And then on this last one, once again, negative divided by positive, so I know my final answer is going to have a negative in it. And I'm going to go ahead and change this right away into an improper fraction. So 5 times 4 plus 1 is 21 over 5 divided by 10. And 10 is a whole number, so I'm going to make that over 1. And so now I can do the reciprocal. Multiply across. 21 over 50. And can't simplify that anymore, so my negative up here reminds me that the final answer is a negative 21 over 50. Please try these last mixed practice of all the topics so far. Okay, so thinking of our triangle when we're multiplying, we have a negative times a negative, which is a positive 33. 30 divided by 5 is 6. A positive divided by a negative leaves us with a negative 6. 13 people on top of a balloon, or $13 getting split amongst 0 things, which is impossible. So this is undefined. Please make sure you spell it right. UNDEFINED. Here we're multiplying because there's nothing in between these, so that means there's multiplication going on. So we just multiply across. 4 times 8 is 32. 9 times 9 is 81. And negative times a negative is a positive. You do not need the plus symbol, but I'm putting it there just to reinforce that I thought about it. And then down here, now we're adding, because they're both negative, so we will be adding, and we have to have a common denominator. And the common denominator on this one, makes sense to have it 12. So 3 times 4 is 12, so 2 times 4 is 8, and it's a negative 8. And then 4 times 3 is 12. So 1 times 3 is 3, and it's a negative 3. And so we're adding because they're both negative, and we will get a negative, because it's all negative, 11 over 12. I'm just going to put this down for a moment. Okay, there it is, sorry. Negative 11 12. Go ahead and box your answer.